after I should say your success with balloon
Oh
animals
no.
last week, I was actually going to ask you to get, this is all related to the Hockney Art Talk, to get out your tablet and, create for us a nice piece of spring art.
Have you ever seen me draw?
I have actually. I'm not sure I know why I asked you.
Even my stick figures walk away.
That's funny.
So, but let's remember, Hockney drew his art on an iPad, but Apple had customized his iPad, and even with that, Hockney said it was very hard to learn how to draw on the iPad itself. He actually started with his iPhone in 2009 by drawing with his thumbs, which is incredible, because I mean, if you ever tried to even write anything on an iPhone, it's hard enough, and then he was actually drawing real, no kidding, art. But then he got the iPad, which came out in 2010. So Hockney had about 12 years of experience drawing on the iPad, and of course 60 years of experience of drawing, painting, and creating, which I think lends itself to what Gladwell said, right? Which is that to become an expert in anything, you need to invest 10,000 hours of your time. And I think with all the time that I've spent on tablets, at least, and Jenny will probably agree to this, with at least signing my name on all these different things over the last several years, I'll give it a try, AJ.
Oh, thank you, Jacques. All right, we're looking forward to this. So as Jacques gets his tablet ready and shares his screen so we can actually see his drawing in real time, I think this will actually be a testament to how difficult actually it is to create really good, interesting, fine art on tablets, iPads, amazingly using your thumb on an iPhone.
It is.
So
And
let's just give it a second for Jacques to share his screen, and we're going to see Jacques try to do something that might be akin to fine art.
Of course, as soon as you start doing something like this, all those messages start popping up to get in the way of what you're trying to actually do.
So are we sharing?
I think we're sharing
the screen. Perfect.
I think we're sharing my screen.
Okay, fantastic. So as you do this, I'll just make a little bit of commentary.
Well, they say that hands are some of the hardest things to draw. So I figured, if I'm gonna go big or go home, right?
All right. Okay. So you're gonna do a hand for us.
I'm gonna try. Okay. I'm gonna try to do a hand.
All right.
So we'll give that a shot.
So what's interesting about this is, instead of paintbrushes, you use these things called stylus brushes, which is the pen that Jacques is holding. This is he's using a Microsoft tablet. Are those bunny ears?
Yeah, well, like I said, I warned you in advance that my drawing is probably more cartoonish at best.
So on the iPad that Hockney used, which was customized by Apple, it had 60 digital brushes, and there's actually interesting about this. There's you don't have to wait for the paint to dry, right?
That's right.
And what you can just simply do is add layer and color after layer and color. And that's how they kind of create these really interesting effects. So it probably I'm guessing it probably for someone like David Hockney to do his first painting on the iPad probably took him a lot longer than would have taken him using oils and the regular canvas.
Yeah, for sure. And in fact, honestly, given the fact that I'm trying to draw here, what ends up happening is
I can see the fingers now and the raised hand.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm going to go ahead and select a brush, and we'll do, so you can see the effects that a brush has, as you add those colors to the drawing. And of course, the one cool thing about doing digital painting is if you make a mistake, it's really easy to erase.
That's true. You don't have to paint over or start with a new canvas.
Yeah, exactly. You can actually undo, which is pretty incredible. And it's amazing how far this technology has come, with the ability to do this kind of work. And if we
so remember to sign. Nice piece of fine art. Our bidding on the balloon art from last week's balloon art in a store was actually pretty disappointing. So maybe we should try to put this one up in our store as well.
Yeah, we can.
So what do you have there? Can you show it to everybody?
Well, yeah, I think everybody can see it.
All right, fantastic.
Yeah,
fantastic.
It's an attempt at a hand, and of course, with digital drawing, there's, even doing something as simple as eyes becomes
right. So I think, Jacques, you probably have 10,000 hours typing and signing your signature on a tablet or iPad, but not sure about fine art.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you, AJ. I'll keep my day job. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
That is what I'm trying to tell you. And to quote Hockney, what was pretty cool about him doing this is that the great advantage of using his iPad as a medium is because it was backlit and he could actually draw in the dark. He said he didn't even have to get out of bed to do his painting. So what's interesting is there's no need for oily paints, brushes, solvents, awkward canvases, and cleanup.
Yeah, look, there's nothing on my hand. You know, when we were doing art before, you know, I'm over here trying to get the paint off my hand, so I'm not getting it all over everything else, right?
Yeah.
Hey, I love digital paint.
So Jacques, when did Hockney actually start this?
Oh gosh, so Hockney started this in 2009, and in fact, his first artwork is bound into a book called My Window, and it's published by Teschen, which shows his art. It's actually a limited edition of 120 drawings he drew looking out his window from his Yorkshire home.
Wow. Okay. So I've been to Yorkshire, and I can imagine how cold and dreary Yorkshire is actually in the springtime. It's actually no wonder Hockney actually moved to France right as COVID-19 began to change our lives. I mean, it wasn't a permanent move, just he went there to France and obviously was stuck there in France, isolated because of COVID. And he actually talks about the fact that there was no one to interrupt his creativity. There were no restaurants, anyone bothering him.
No distractions.
No distraction. It was just his art, his art, and his iPad. Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, Vivek and I can appreciate that. If we could sit and code all the time like that,
you're right.
Amazing things would happen.
So he ended up creating 116 iPad paintings during the COVID period. And these are actually currently on exhibit at the Royal Academy of Art in the UK in London. The exhibit continues to the end of September, just in case any of you might be traveling to London. Our art curator, who actually just recently saw the exhibit, said it was just absolutely fabulous.
And if you just some of the artwork that we've had a chance to look at he's done an amazing job. It's almost hard to believe somebody actually did all that on a computer screen.
It is.
Yeah, exactly.
So Sarah, over to you. Let's see some of his creations.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
So a couple things. I do have a co-host this week. This is Hank.
Oh, hey, Hank.
Oh my goodness.
That's a cute dog, Sarah. That's awesome.
He's surprisingly calm at the moment. So if you hear any snorting or barking, you know it's not coming from me. And I am at my family home, which is under construction currently. So I do apologize for any excess noise. Here we go. Let me share my screen.
So I imagine Michael out there with hammers.
Yes. Perfect. So this art talk will be slightly different than usual. We will be focusing on a specific exhibit by David Hockney instead of talking about an overview of his work as we do with some other artists. But I will start with a recap about Hockney because back in October, we did an art talk about Hockney, but let's refresh our memories. So born in 1937 in Bradford, England, David Hockney was one of 5 children. In grade school, Hockney purposefully failed his classes because boys who showed academic promise were forced to drop art class. He went on to study at the Bradford School of Art and then the Royal Academy of Art in London in 1959, which is where his current exhibit is at the moment. And at that time, in 1959, students at the Royal Academy had to submit an essay with their final work in order to graduate. And Hockney adamantly refused and said that he should be judged on his art, not his writing. And surprisingly, the Royal Academy, a school that upholds longstanding traditions, changed its rule and allowed Hockney to graduate without this essay. And that's kind of a testament to his spirit and the vigor that he has. And while at the Royal Academy, he became part of the British pop art scene that was emerging. He was then drawn to Los Angeles and moved there in 1964, becoming friends with many other creatives like novelist Christopher Isherwood and designer Ozzie Clark. He loved it. And over the next few years, he stayed in California, taught at schools like Berkeley and UCLA. If you recall, he made many famous paintings of pools that we covered in October and is known for using bright colors that evoke joy. He also experiments with different mediums such as paint, printmaking, and some others that we'll see in his most recent exhibit. So this is his most recent body of work. This exhibit is called Arrival of Spring, and Jacques and AJ kind of gave a general overview. So all 116 pieces have been quote unquote painted on his iPad. And this is not Hockney's first time using an iPad to create his works, but he uses the stylus to paint the pictures and then prints them out onto paper. So this exhibit was made in spring 2020 during a period of intense activity at his home in Normandy. And this exhibition charts the unfolding of spring from beginning to end and is a joyous celebration of the season. And this is a great piece to begin on. So Hockney took inspiration from the Bayeux tapestry. And as I mentioned, Hockney created these images at his house in Normandy. And if you remember from previous discussions of the Bayeux tapestry, it showcases the Norman conquest of England. So what Hockney did is he strung together all 116 images to create a tapestry of the arrival of spring. And as you can see, Camilla, the Duchess of Cornwall, attended the exhibition, standing in front of a selection of his works. So each painting is titled by number. And as you can see, they are documented with the date they were painted so that the viewer can see spring unfolding chronologically. So here we've got, you can see number 1 is April 9th, number 2, April 12th, April 5th, and April 12th again. So as I mentioned, the 116 images were put on display starting last month. So COVID is obviously a factor. And the gallery is able to have viewers, but with capacity limits. And the exhibit will last until September of this year. And in some of the images, you can see he didn't just draw images of the outside, but he uses different perspectives to vary the images. For example, we can see spring peeking through his front door. So apologies for the kind of blurry slide. There aren't a ton of online images yet since the exhibit is so new. But again, here's a selection of images from the exhibit. And of course, we can see Hockney's characteristic bright colors that certainly evoke joy with the greens, the blues, and the purples. And there's something so childlike about these images. And I say that as a compliment in the sense of childlike wonder and childhood joy that these images suggest. So here's an image he did of some irises with some inspiration taken from Van Gogh with the kind of wispy brushstrokes and bright colors. And again, with color at the forefront, here is a rendition of a blossoming field. And in this, it almost looks like he uses the iPad stylus to employ some pointillism techniques. So he's really building off of many artists that have come before him and different techniques. So here is the exhibition poster, and it's one of the darker images with the main color being the brown dirt of the garden. And what I think is interesting in this image is it seems a lot more, I guess you could say, simple in terms of the detail of the objects that are found in the dirt, whereas this image of ripe cherries is much more detailed in terms of the shading and the coloring, and even has aspects of impressionism with the reflection of light off the cherries and the shading under the leaves. And so you can tell that on some days, maybe Hockney was willing to put in a little more detail into his images than others. And here we have the final image of the exhibit. This is number 116, with it being the darkest of the images, even though it's the furthest into the season. And this was actually done on July 4th. So it was actually summer, not spring. But I kind of like the representation behind this one. It's almost as if the sun is setting on spring and it's becoming a new season. And this too definitely has aspects of impressionism with the kind of smaller brush strokes and the relationship to light. So that concludes our talk today about Hockney's new exhibit, Arrival of Spring. I mean, he clearly wasn't bored during quarantine. He kept himself very busy and wanted to use his time in Normandy to portray a celebration of nature and to quote, love life, which is a saying he refers to often. Thank you.
Wow. And he says he'll be back next year. So that's great. I love that last one. Sarah, which one was your favorite?
I like the irises.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's a good choice.
It's simple, but I don't know. I love flowers, so I'm a sucker for some flowers.
It's certainly evocative of Van Gogh's irises for sure. Yeah. I like number 60, which had just as many weeds as flowers in it. Not sure if it was just, weeds or a garden.
He was painting what he saw. Maybe he needed to do some weeding in his garden.
Yeah, that's right. I had heard that he actually pointed out that in the Bible and other ancient texts that gardens are actually very important places. So maybe that's why he includes it. So I think we've got a few other interesting pieces here to show. Actually, this I think we can show that one again here. So it is kind of interesting in itself, as you've mentioned, kind of fairly simply done, but
with so much detail.
Yeah,
right? Simplicity with details.
Yeah, it's interesting. What was I think the next one also we just want to show again for a second is the cherries.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
Was
it's a
one of my
little, it's
favorites.
vertical, but that's okay. Yeah.
Such contrast
And
between the two, which really shows his proficiency in so many different styles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you go back one? Because there's another artist, I think, Jacques, that's one of your favorite artists.
It is,
that
yeah.
did
Damien
cherry.
Hirst did
Yeah.
the cherry blossoms, which that's why I think why I like the cherries there.
Yeah, so that's Hockney.
if
And
you-
there's go one more.
Yeah,
Nope. We're out of order probably.
yeah, a little bit.
It's
But
that one right
there
there.
you go. Yeah, so there's David Hirst's cherry
Yeah.
blossoms, which was also a series of canvases that
Mhm.
huge canvases that portrayed that.
Right. So kind of in a similar way in terms of some, of what Hockney was doing in terms of multiple different days views of nature.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and then the next one, which I think Lucky if you can move to, that's the famous Nichols Canyon by David Hockney as well, which